Hey everyone, my name is Kayla Morton. I'm the sports editor at the East Carolinian. Welcome to the fall version of TECSperts for East Carolina's football team. This is Aaron Jackson. He's the football editor for the East Carolinian and a beat writer for football. This is Tyler Gavin, and he is the other football beat writer this semester. Hi everyone, welcome to this week's version of TECSperts. We're going to be recapping ECU's loss down in Houston and previewing their home night matchup against Tulane this Saturday. So guys, the Pirates lose, nothing new. They lost by 25 points to Houston at 52-27, but Gardner Minshew did come in for Thomas Sirk, set an ECU and AAC record with 52 completed passes in the game, 463 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Yet there's still quarterback controversy. Should there be, or do we need to just roll with Minshew at this point in the season?
I think Coach Montgomery should have gave Minshew a little bit more time in the beginning of the season to get into the position and probably make it his own. But because there was a quarterback controversy from preseason leading up all the way till now, technically, nobody's been able to settle into that position.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was a concerted effort to try to get Sirk to be the starter, the predominant starter in the beginning of the season, and that really hindered what Gardner was. And he came in, and every time he's come in, you see that deep ball is really effective. And he has a really good chemistry with Trayvon Brown and Quay Johnson. They combined for 25 catches. I think this game against Tulane will be Gardner heavy.
Yeah. And head coach Scotty Montgomery did say in his press conference that he did plan to bench Thomas Sirk. So would you say it's an uneducated decision to keep trying to roll with Sirk at any point in the game? I mean, Tyler, you brought up the fact that the Pirates are on 4th and 1 with Minshew. They bring Sirk in for a similar play like they did against the University of South Florida, but this time run the ball with a quarterback, trying to do a quarterback sneak, and loses 3 yards. So 6 or 7 points off the table. Why?
It was maybe the most predictable play I've ever seen in my 21 years of watching sports, in any sport. It was a terrible play. It was a bad play call by Mo and Peterson. But I think Sirk brings something to the table. That run game that we saw is effective, and I think it can help, but not on 4th and 1. Not when the whole world knows it's coming.
I do agree. Once you see Minshew playing, then you see Sirk come in the game, and you've watched film on Sirk for sure, and you know he can run the ball, and it's that close of yardage to gain, and Sirk's in the game all of a sudden, you know
exactly what's going to happen. It's exactly what they used to do with James Summers. That after the 1 year where he was really successful, then they only brought him in to run the ball, and it was clear as day.
So do you think Minshew can bring any sort of run game to the table?
Oh, I do think that his quick release in the pass game is going to help them out. But the run game is going to be tough because I haven't seen him roll out in a while, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think him passing will open up the run game more than his legs will.
Mm-hmm. So if you were Scotty Montgomery, what would your plan be for quarterbacks going forward?
For quarterbacks, I'd probably stick with the hot guy. That's all I'd say.
Yeah, right now I'd roll with Gardner and see how that goes.
Okay, so Tyler, you brought up Trayvon Brown. He had 2 of Minshew's touchdown passes. He seems to be Minshew's favorite target. I mean, his stats since he's been at ECU seems to only catch touchdowns from Gardner Minshew himself. So how will he continue to be the leader for the Pirates this year in, well, some would say a lost season, but also next year considering he got another year of eligibility?
He presents that deep ball threat, and that's what Gardner's best at throwing, and that brings a whole new element to the Pirates offense when Sirk, compared to when Sirk's in, because Sirk doesn't have the greatest of arms and the greatest of accuracy. He's more of a runner. And for Trayvon to finally be open down the field and be able to catch passes from someone throwing it within his range is huge.
One thing, I did speak to Trayvon Brown in practice this week, and he said his goal is to just take the top off of the defense, and if he attracts attention, he's going to get his other receivers open. But with Gardner Minshew being at quarterback, Minshew likes to throw it quick. So by the time the cornerback is actually pressed up on Brown, Brown's sprinting past him, and that's why it's always great for the deep ball with them too.
So when he's opening up other receivers, Quay Johnson also had a good game. Kind of talk about what he's brought in recent weeks to the Pirates.
Gardner Minshew did add that Quay Johnson, his shiftiness, his ability to miss a tackle, break tackles, juke somebody, that has been very effective, and it really made him a better slot receiver this season. And Minshew really takes advantage of that.
Yeah, because Trayvon gets open down the field, that takes the top off, and now Quay gets to run under the defenders. He gets to run the short routes, and with Gardner's quick release and gets to mobile Quay Johnson, he gets to miss tackles, and that's how he racks up 140 yards.
So once again, the defense couldn't have been worse. It seems they're still 129 out of 129 in the football bowl subdivision. So they let a quarterback who's run heavy beat them with his arm. He completed 15 passes for 330 yards, and 1/5 of those passes was touchdowns as he completed 3 of them. Neither team even had a run game, but what does this say for the defense and how they're going to struggle going forward?
Well, the defense has always slightly struggled with the run game this season, and as long as they are hurt, not making tackles in the secondary or getting pressure from the defensive line, the only position that's able to succeed is the linebacker position. And for the linebacker to succeed, you have to have the defensive tackles pushing so they can get open views of the running back coming through the lane. And if they don't get that, they can't make these tackles.
Yeah, De'Ara King never having to run the ball was a huge problem because those slant patterns were wide open the whole game. It was never like they were going deep down the field to get these long touchdowns. They were just wide receivers running wide open. And I think Bobby Folk probably had his worst game of the season and then ends up dislocating his ankle. Out for the season. So it's whoever's going to step in needs to play better and needs to push this defensive back group into covering the wide receivers.
So do you think Bobby Folk being injured, I mean, we don't want to see players leave the team because they're injured, but will actually help ECU because he's left receivers wide open, he's committed unnecessary penalties. Do you think even though someone's going to have to step up either from the second team or the practice squad is actually going to be better for ECU?
I think losing Bobby Folk is bad for ECU because of his seniority and how he acts on the field. He knows how to be on the field, but it does give the opportunity for somebody else to come in and step in and do better than what Bobby Folk's done this season.
Especially if they haven't been scouted by other teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Aaron absolutely nailed it, that Bobby brings more than just his talent, which hasn't been there this season. He's had a really tough season, but he brings something to that defense. He brings an attitude. And without that, a defense with no identity is going to have an even harder time this week.
So shifting to Tulane, they're also 3-6 and 1-4 in the American. But in 2 of those games of their wins, they've scored 43 and 62 points. Notable losses also included 2-pointer to Navy, 13 to Florida International University, just 6 to number 13 USF, which the Pirates lost to 61-31, and just 1 point last week against Cincinnati, who ECU is going to face next week. So on their roster, not many people stand out as being great, and maybe that's why they've dropped close contests. But does that actually prove that they're a good team, they're not what their record shows, and it's going to beat ECU this weekend?
Well, I do believe that Tulane is a good team. I don't think nobody does stand out on offense or defense, but if you do look at Tulane's defense, they're tied 15th in the nation with turnover margin. They've created 13 and given up 6, and ECU is giving up 9 just from CERC. So it could be a field day for them, and they could run away with it.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a good team coming to Daddy Ficklin this weekend. They're super run heavy, which just turns these games into slugfest, that they just play between the trenches and they make it a super slow game. And for them to score 61 points is wild. I read that they've scored every drive that's went at least 70 yards they've scored on. So if ECU's defense isn't careful, these drives are going to start early because of Austin Barnes, who's a phenomenal punter who we don't talk about enough, and Jake Verity is often kicking touchbacks. So they're going to have bad field position, but it seems like they're able to march.
So does ECU's defense even have a chance this week?
I think they do. I'll take it. I think they do. I don't think Tulane brings in a passing game, and I think that's going to let ECU load the box, and Aaron Ramsey and Jordan Williams are going to have big games. I see double-digit tackles from both of them and just loading the box and trying to keep them contained.
I just think it's going to be tough for the defense to get off the field, and I think it's going to be tough for the offense to stay on the field. So the defense, they will get tired, and when they get tired, they'll make mistakes.
We've definitely seen that this season.
It'll get bad.
So what are some of the notable players that Tulane does have, even though nothing jumps out at you when you look at their roster?
Well, definitely Jonathan Banks. He's been progressing throughout the season. Started well, went through a tough patch with the team, and then he's kind of started to get it together with these last close wins, especially the one against Cincy. So I expect him to kind of settle into this game and probably take advantage of the ECU defense.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a single player. If it is, it's Bobby Higgins, but it's the running back group. They're super run heavy. They run for over 235 yards a game. They got 23 rushing touchdowns. Jonathan Banks has a huge part in that because he's not often throwing the ball. And Bobby Higgins looks like he's quickly ascending the Tulane record books with his rushing game, and I think that's going to be a huge problem for ECU.
So what does ECU have to do to actually win this game?
I think Montgomery was right. He needs the fan attendance, the fans into the game. He needs everybody that was there for homecoming to be the same type of aggressiveness.
Good thing it's Military Appreciation Day.
And that's one factor that could help ECU in this. And they lead the AAC in attendance records. So maybe if we do get this Saturday, or the Pirates get this Saturday, they could pull off an upset win.
Yeah, that's a huge point, that ECU does have fans. No matter how much people really hate the team right now, they're mad at the team for not being too good, they don't show up. I watched the Houston game, there was nobody there. It was an empty stadium. But going back to what ECU has to do, they have to load the box and they have to contain that run game, and then they need to not turn the ball over because their 3 turnovers were all deadly against Houston.
So Aaron, you are the only one of us picking Tulane this weekend, shockingly. But you have their score prediction at 40-24. Why does it go that way?
Well, I think it goes this way because ECU's only scored 41 points in their only, or not their only win, but one of their wins this season, and that's the most they've scored all season. While in a loss, the most they've scored is 31. And I think Tulane will just take advantage of ECU's shortcomings, and ECU will have them during the game.
So I have the score prediction at 34-17, just because I think ECU can put a couple touchdowns on the board, especially if Gardner plays most of the game, which he should. That deep pass will be there. He's not afraid to execute it. Trayvon Brown will get open. Quay Johnson will get open. And if he can get some of his other receivers to get open, that's also going to help him. That's something Thomas Sirk just doesn't have. He doesn't seem to have the chemistry, so they need to roll with Minshew this weekend. And Tulane, even though they've scored a lot of points, I think the focus for the defense has been on the run this week for Tulane. But even though they will give up yards and they will give up points that way, if they can't, Tulane is not going to run the entire game. So if they can't get anything passing going, like you said, they're not going to have a chance in the game. And Tyler, you have 31-24 for ECU in a very close game. Why is that?
Because I think these two teams are very similar. The records are the exact same. ECU super pass heavy while Tulane super run heavy, but they're focused on one singular thing. And I think if ECU can come in and, like I've been saying, stack the box and slow down this run game, they'll definitely give up 100 yards. They'll give up probably 20 points, but they can do enough to slide by with Gardner and that offense and some momentum and hopefully get another home win. Tulane scores half as many points on the road, and they run for 100 yards less on the road. So I think those are going to be two problems. And ECU is 8-0 at home against Tulane. So I really think they're going to continue that streak.
All right, and that concludes our TECSperts for this week. Join in next week when we recap the Tulane game and preview Cincinnati.
Hopefully Aaron's wrong.
Going down, Aaron.